I'll probably provide these quick updates again before we start. But if anybody is submitting queries, we really appreciate it to the glider contest. We have a lot of submissions going on, so uh, please be patient with us as we are going through every query and providing feedback. Note that it is not required to have your query approved to be rewarded in the contest. All that matters is that you submit your query before the contest ends, which is going to be December 31st. And just be note of potential duplicates. I still see some people submitting duplicates. If you guys have queries that you think may be a duplicate, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are more than happy to review all queries that have been submitted to guarantee that your query is unique. Had a lot of great submissions so far, so thanks for that. Um, and as always, just ping me on Discord or ask us in the channel if you have any questions regarding the contest. Okay, guys, I say let's get started. Before we just to start the event, just want to give a quick reminder. Again, contest ends December 31st. Please submit your queries. We appreciate your patience. We are reviewing every query as long as the query is submitted before the contest uh, and it's approved. I mean, it could be approved after the contest ends. You will be rewarded. So beware of that. If you worry about duplicates, please don't hesitate to ping us. We could check for you, and we will obviously do our very best to help you write the best query you can write and have it submitted and be rewarded. So, really, thank you guys for all the work that you guys are doing on this. Um, so, let's get started. Welcome, everybody today for another Remedy Discord event. Today we have a very special guest, m3taldrag0n, who is one of our very own researchers at Hexens. And today we're going to talk to him about his use of Glider, and especially his own legendary query, a proxy implementation bug that he identified and then wrote a query for and found a vulnerability. So, welcome everybody to m3taldrag0n.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here and excited to talk about my work and my experience with Glider.
Yeah, I'm excited about this talk as well. Really appreciate you coming out. It's really nice to talk to somebody who is a really gifted security researcher who is using Glider, thinking about using Glider, and how they use it. I guess for like, can you give me like a bit of background that you have in like your career as a security researcher?
Yeah, of course. I'm a smart contract security researcher with a software engineering background. I've been working at Hexens for nearly 3 years, where I focus on Web3 security in general, including auditing blockchain protocols, researching vulnerabilities, and building internal tooling to support security research and analysis across different ecosystems, like Glider. Before moving fully into Web3 security, I spent several years working as a .NET backend developer. I hold both a bachelor's and master's degree in computer software engineering. So this background helped me integrate into the Web3 security space very quickly. And yeah, I am in Web3 security around 3 years. So that's all about me.
What did you what got you into Web3 security? Like what interested you in it?
Hacking and finding issues and bugs in code more interesting than writing code, in my opinion. I like more security researcher job than developer, because like you can work on the same code base around 3 or 5, and yeah, like this is more interesting thing for me than developing.
Yeah, I also have a background in software engineering, and those are like the same reasons why I liked security research more. Um, Programming got I think maybe a little boring for me. So, like security research is so it's so creative and it requires so much. I think a lot of thought and a lot of process into it, more than writing code. Um, so one of the big reasons like why I thought this was going to be such an interesting interview is that you're one of the few people who have a legendary query in our query database, and it's regarding an initialized implementation vulnerability. Like, I guess like the first question I want to know is, was this the very first query you wrote?
To be honest, it was one of my first Glider queries. At the time, I was actively working with Glider and testing the IDE itself. Before focusing on vulnerability discovery, I spent time writing queries specifically to identify bugs and edge cases in the Glider engine and query execution model. Once the engine and ID reached a stable state, I shifted my focus toward writing queries aimed at real-world vulnerability discovery in smart contracts. This query was among the first I wrote in that phase. So I started as an early experiment. I iterated on it multiple times to reduce false positives and handle edge cases. And yeah, it's proved that it can capture real repeatable vulnerability class. And it was one of the first queries, like a query which can find vulnerability in smart contracts.
That's interesting. Can you give us a breakdown of what that vulnerability is that the query is looking for?
Yeah, of course, the vulnerability is rooted in an unsafe initialize function in upgradable beacon proxies and also in UPS proxies. In our case, clonable beacon proxy allows external initialization. During it, the proxy calls upgrade beacon to and call function, which delegate calls into the implementation returned by the beacon contract. So attacker can deploy malicious beacon under their control and point it to malicious implementation that contains any destructive logic such as self-destruct. So attacker then initialize the proxy using malicious beacon and crafted call data. As a result, the proxy immediately delegate calls into the malicious implementation during the initialize function. So outcome as a result, proxy logic can be destroyed or permanently corrupted. After that, future calls may silently succeed or revert. For example, if you call any function to self-destructed implementation and the function call will be succeed. For example, we call each user whitelisted as example, and it can return true for low level call. And so also there can be case when proxy becomes unrecoverable. In my case, this freezes part of the protocol and forces a migration to a new deployment. So the same issue also exists in UUPS proxies as well, since the upgrade logic lives inside the implementation contract. If attacker can control the implementation and it contains self-destruct or similar destructive functionality, proxy can be broken in the same way. So attacker can freeze some part of protocol, but one important point that this is relevant only up until the Ethereum Spectra upgrade. With Spectra, the behavior of self-destruct opcode changed, and it no longer removes contract code in the same way. So this attack is no longer exploitable on networks that have adopted the new behavior.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So one thing that uh, I notice is that you have a very good understanding of the vulnerability. Obviously, you probably did that, and maybe you had that before. Or like, I guess my question is, where did that information come from? Where did that knowledge come from? Did you find that in a bug in a different, like in a previous audit, or were you reading documentation and discovered it? Did you work with proxies, like deploying your own just for testing purposes to understand the security vulnerability? Where did that like information for that vulnerability come from?
As I remember, the first uh, research where I read about this bug was related to wormhole protocol. Maybe you know, they
Yeah.
forgot to initialize the proxy and they paid around $10 million bug bounty to researcher. Also, after that, I had a lot of cases when audited protocol where they uses one of these proxies like beacon proxy or UPS proxy. So this is not this very common and I think simple bug. But the key point is that this bug is hard to detect during audit because the contract should be deployed and protocol can upgrade their current version to the new one and forgot just update initially the implementation of the proxy contract. So yeah, this is very simple bug, but for catching this you need to see it the contract in production environment.
Yeah, that's really yeah, that's really interesting. I think oftentimes contributors don't think about that. Like, like I guess when I'm talking about Slider contributors, where they'll write a bug that obviously can be caught during an audit, but you could also look for vulnerabilities that you could only check for in production systems using Glider. That's
Yeah,
a that's
correct.
a
Without
neat
checking the
feature.
storage of contract, you can say that this bug is valid for that contract.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Why did I guess like you maybe answered this a little bit before, but why did you think this is a very good vulnerability to look for in Glider?
Yeah, because it's a pattern level vulnerability, not a contract specific mistake. So Glider is very good at pattern matching. So
Mhm.
once this pattern exists on chain, and this is a very well known pattern, it can affect many contracts at the same time. So yeah, there are a lot of outputs for these kind of queries, but with manual checking and with restrictions, you can improve your query and get uh, very well filtered output. There were cases when I wrote a query to identify a very specific bug related to a specific type of protocol. But in this case, I thought that I need to check something that very well known pattern, and there can be some issues. So, and also I know that there were some real cases, like as I said, whole case. So that's why I decided to write this query.
Yeah, that tracks with sort of my experience in that you kind of it's very good at pattern matching, and the type of bugs you want to look for are not something that are necessarily specific to one protocol. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe if that protocol's forked a lot, right? That makes sense.
yeah.
But um, pattern matching is the way to go. Okay, so you wrote the query, you ran it, you got back results. How did you go through all the results for that query?
For the first, I always write a very simple and general query, and I check always the outputs and filtered out abuse false positives. I am filtering that by adding new conditions and query and iteratively improve the query until the output was as clean as possible. But as I said, this query still requires me a manual review because a contract might already be initialized, and with Glider you can't understand it because it's related to contract storage. That can only be verified by checking the contract storage directly. After that, I manually reviewed each address to determine whether it was actually in use or controlled by another protocol, because there were a lot of dead proxies which not initialized but doesn't belong to any protocol or any there were not in use. So once I confirmed the issues, I created a reusable POC templates for this vulnerability and then wrote a specific POC for each affected protocol.
Yeah, that's really smart. I really like that way, that approach. I think it's really important to iteratively build your query. I think sometimes people will try to build everything at once, and it overcomplicates things. I really like the idea too that this query does not have to be an end to end test. It doesn't have to completely verify the vulnerability. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
obviously, in an ideal world, we would love for Glider to do that, and we're aiming for that. But right now, if you have a query that you think is going to potentially catch it, but there's no 100% guarantee, I mean, we really appreciate those queries too. I mean, that's what your query does, and it found a valid finding.
yeah.
Um, what would you suggest for users who are looking to write their own legendary query?
Oh, to be honest, I prefer focus on vulnerability patterns, not individual bugs. For example, if you have found a strong critical issue through any bug bounty platform that isn't related to a specific contract implementation, like that there is only type of protocol that you can find, and but instead to common design patterns, like that's a great starting point in my opinion. The same applies if you have discovered a serious issue across category, like for example liquid staking protocols. You know that bug exists in every liquid staking protocol. Those are exactly the kinds of patterns are turning into queries. It's also very important to balance precision and recall. Queries that are too strict will miss real issues and true positives, while very general queries will produce a lot of noise in the output. So you need to find a balance between both. So as conclusion, I can say if your query helps answer the question where could this architectural mistake exist across many protocols, I think you are on the right track.
Yeah, that's I really couldn't have said it better myself. I think that in terms of like legendary queries, you really have to think about um, not something that's too general, but not something that's too complex. And I think I think if once you start writing a couple queries, you'll kind of get a better sense of that because you'll start seeing like queries, their results. Okay, my query is doing this. These are the type of results I'm getting back, and you could dial that in. And I think that's also mentioned when you mentioned earlier about the iterative process of writing a query. I think that's also very important, and that's going to help you nail down your query.
Yeah, correct. I agree with you.
So when working with Glider, what are some lessons that you've learned when writing your Glider queries that you think could be helpful for others?
Oh,
And I think you've answered this a little bit already, but if there's anything else that you would want to add to that.
A good query is iterative. Always the first version is really correct, and refining it based on results is part of the process. Many contracts that are live on mainnet are still vulnerable, so you don't need to think like every contract is audited and safe if it's on mainnet. Even relatively simple bugs can lead to serious findings and meaningful bug bounties if you know where to look. Yeah, so this is not very complicated bug, but with this one, you can manage to find couple of bug bounties with this simple query. So also, as I said, these type of vulnerabilities only exist in production. So to catch them, you often need to look beyond the source code and understand how the contract behaves in real conditions. So I can say contract storage values on chain state are often just as important as the code itself.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think too. I'll add to that. I think um, if you're very familiar with a particular bug, let's say you do an audit contest and you kind of you found that bug, you understand it very well. I think it's very easy for someone to translate that into a glider query.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah,
own personal experience, and you're going to have a lot better time doing that than somebody else's bug that somebody else found.
yeah.
Not to say you can't do that.
Mhm.
Um, all right. So let's say that there's a somebody who's never used Glider for the first time and they want to try it. What type of query do you think that they should write? What would be your recommendation for the first thing they do when working with Glider?
Oh, as you said, I think as a good starting point, I'd suggest choosing a well-known vulnerability, like investigate it, understand it very well, and re-implementing it as a glider query. Platforms like Solidit are a great source for this. You can find many high-quality findings from low to critical from different security companies, including Hexans. In the beginning, it's important to manually validate your results. Yeah, yeah, like you need to improve your mental model of how Glider works, how you can scale your research very quickly. So you need I think for the first also if this is very first time they need learn basic of glider. Like our documentation is already quite good and provides everything you need to get started, and after that choose just a very well known vulnerability and re-implement it as a glider query.
Yeah, that's all great advice. Documentation is great. Obviously, we also have
Yeah.
Discord too. So if people are wanting to try it out, just ask on Discord. We're happy to answer. Uh, one like thing I want to add to that too is I see a lot of people use grepping for writing queries, and it's I have like mixed feelings about it. Largely, I think it goes against pattern matching, which is one of the really great features in Glider. When you have grepping, it can somewhat restrict what you're doing, and you're relying on what a developer is naming a variable, and a developer can name it any way they want, really.
Yeah.
So I would say too, if you're starting out, grepping is very it's natural. You naturally want to grep for something, but I don't know. I think that it can limit your query. It's one of those things you got to think about when you're writing it, and you'll see like certain you'll miss on certain results because of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just something I see quite often, especially with the contest going on. Um, where do you see Glider being most useful for you as a security researcher?
Uh, uh, for the first, let's say, large scale pattern discovery, I think Glider in this space really shines, and I think it's best tool on the market right now for this kind of work. Also, it's very powerful to find real world cases, real world vulnerabilities very quickly. For example, if you guys remember third wave case, where many protocols were put at the risk by the same underlying issue. With Glider, buyers can identify all affected contracts across the many chains in seconds. So this is very powerful tool to find in seconds all affected contracts. Also, another powerful thing is continuously running queries against on-chain contracts, especially newly deployed ones. I think here Glider has huge potential. With a strong database of queries, so if we have hundred of queries, Glider can effectively act like a automated audit agent. I think scanning every new contract deployed on chain like in seconds.
Yeah, and the ability to update your query and then rescan it too. That's also nice as well.
Yeah,
Uh, I I think about the balancer hack too a lot, especially with that when you have this. It's a very great thing to look when you have Glider to look for that type of vulnerability because first of all, it was the code itself was correct on GitHub, but
yeah,
when it
yeah,
was deployed on production, it was different. And most people, some people will look at GitHub. I don't know how many people are going to look at the production code. Obviously, Glider just looks at production code. It doesn't. It's not going to look for something on GitHub. And we're able to look at every fork of Balancer to identify whether or not they had this particular math function that is vulnerable or that is just written incorrectly.
yeah.
So
Glider much more better than GitHub search in this case.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah,
Also,
100%.
imagine the case when you are you found the issue in balancer. Yeah, you are whited and
Yeah,
found issue in balancer, and you need to find all forks to report all issues like in the same time. With Glider, as I said, you can do that in seconds. Just
yeah. I think it's very hard, especially with like GitHub search, to find every fork of a particular protocol. That's very tough to do. Glider is the only tool I really know that you could do it with, near 100% accuracy.
and
So
after
that,
finding it on GitHub, you need to verify does it deploy it on any mainnet or not.
yeah, yeah. You know something? I was just thinking about this. Something too that's really nice with Glider is that you could do like a compare results with forks, where if you like, say you pick like Balancer for example, and you just want to see how different forks. If let's say you want to see if a fork has written a function slightly different compared to the original. So you
Yeah.
could look for forks that have modified the original code base, which I mean, like, can sometimes result in vulnerabilities. That's like a really cool thing to do. I've done it once or twice. It's really fun. I think it'd be a really interesting thing to look for if you're just looking for bugs with Glider.
Yeah, agree.
Um, all right, I have one final question for you. And as always, guys, if you have any questions, just don't hesitate to post them in chat, and I'll ask Metal Dragon. I saw Tinkerbot, you asked one. I think I asked that previously, and Metal did respond to it. Um, are there any tools, workflows, or tricks you'd like to share with Glider users for writing Glider queries?
To be honest, I didn't use any specific tool. Maybe a custom or personal library of reusable query fragments can be helpful for hunters. So having a set of proven snippets can save a lot of time and helps you iterate faster. And I remember I used Archem and Sim Explorer to identify outputs like does the contract belongs to a known protocol or is just an isolated contract. Archem has amazing takes for I think every address, and also I used Sim Explorer to check the storages of contracts, and maybe also can be helpful block scan or falcon scan for internal transactions of contracts, because currently, as I know, a lot of chains don't support internal transactions.
Oh, that's really good info. Really great. And we'll also post the links in the general channel for anything we mentioned, including your query. If that's no more question, guys, I think that's going to be a wrap. I'll just give a quick synopsis of the glider contest because I know some of you guys are contributors. I mentioned this in the beginning of the call. Please continue submitting queries. We appreciate every single one that you guys submit. We're currently going through a lot of submissions, so just be patient with us. We really appreciate that. The contest is going to end December 31st. If you guys have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And whether that's technical questions or to check to see if a query has been already submitted, in case you don't want to submit a duplicate or optimization query. Um, I think that's really about it. Metal Dragon, I really, really appreciate taking time out to come talk to us. I think this is really valuable info for others who are wanting to just get better at Glider and ultimately find their own legendary query.
Thank you too for inviting and organizing this kind of event. This is also very good experience for me. Thank you everyone for joining.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you, Alan, for setting this all up. Guys, will be probably back next week, and just know that we're some of us are going to be on holidays, so if you're waiting for a contribution response in your own contribution, just expect maybe hopefully a little bit of delay, but we're going to be working through as many contributions as we can. So um, just be patient. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.